What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Here we are with another reaction. In this, we have the 9 biggest lies about Australia people keep believing. Australian stereotypes and misconceptions. Now, before we dump into these stereotypes and misconceptions, if you guys happen to enjoy, please don't forget to subscribe, give the video a thumbs up, and let's get right to it.
If you're planning to come to Australia, whether it is to live or for a visit, in this video we're going to talk about the biggest misconceptions people have about Australia and Australians that are simply not true. So if you're interested, keep watching. The first misconception about Australians that people have is that all Australians know how to surf. As you may know, Australia has some of the most beautiful beaches in the world, and with that, surfing and swimming are naturally very popular sports. And indeed, many Australians who live near the water or by the coast tend to be great surfers or at least do it as a hobby. But this doesn't mean that everyone knows how to surf. In fact, research by Royal Life Saving Australia reports that 1 in 4 adults in Australia are either weak swimmers or can't swim, so let alone surfing.
Really?
So that's a massive misconception that many people have about Australians in general. And having said that, if you're coming to Australia for a visit and you don't know how to swim, I highly recommend taking some lessons if you want to get in the water. Otherwise, don't do it because it's very risky and tourist drownings are actually a thing in this country. Now, the second misconception...
I feel like that shouldn't even be a misconception. Like, you shouldn't just expect everybody to be able to know how to surf. For 1 in 4 people to not know how to swim, I find that interesting, but still, that's not like completely shocking to me. But yeah, I don't know about them Australian waters with the jellyfish and the crocodiles and the things that are in the waters. Swim between the cones. That's all. Swim between the cones. All right, what's number 2?
I always hear about Australia, and so many people keep leaving comments about that and asking me about that, is that there are dangerous animals everywhere, even snakes coming out of the toilet. And while it is true that Australia is home to some of the most deadliest creatures in the world, it also has many unique and diverse wildlife that it's not necessarily dangerous unless you disturb them. So urban areas, that is cities, are generally safe, and it's very rare that you are actually going to come across an animal, a kangaroo or a koala or even a snake. It's very, very rare. You actually have to get out of your way to see wildlife, and it's very likely that if you're a tourist, you'll actually have to end up going to a reserve to try to see some wildlife, or perhaps if you go to a national park, you might spot some wallabies or kangaroos. Okay, another misconception that many people...
Yeah, I mean, I did know that. I've seen it in many videos. And it's ridiculous that people think these dangerous animals are everywhere in Australia. But I won't lie, before I looked up videos and learned a lot about Australia, I guess I used to think the same in a sense. But yeah, you go to these cities, like she said, you got to go out of your way to get in front of these wildlife. And as long as, even if you see some things, as long as you leave it alone, it will leave you alone. And if you look at the deaths like that the wildlife brings about in Australia, all these deadliest creatures in the world rarely ever kill anyone in Australia.
That Australians use slang for absolutely everything, and that you won't understand a thing of what they're saying. True. The reality is that at the beginning, perhaps if English is not your first language, you might struggle a bit with the Australian accent, and of course there are some slang words that you have to get familiar with in order to understand what they mean, right? So if someone says, oh, let's meet this arbo means afternoon. So it is true that there's some slang, but that doesn't mean that you'll come here and you won't be able to communicate. Not at all. But the reality, of course, again, is that if you're not an English native speaker, and perhaps like me, you were used to the American or the British accent, perhaps during the first few months or the first year, you may struggle a bit with the accent, but the good news is that Australians are super, super kind, and they won't have any issues in helping you with that, yeah? And something else to know is that Australia is super multicultural, so you will get to hear many different accents from all over the world, so don't worry about it. Okay, another big
Y'all absolutely do have a ton of slang, so I don't know about that one. I don't think that's a stereotype or a misconception. Y'all use a ton of slang. So I don't know if I agree with that one per se.
Conception that many people have is that Australia has no culture. Everything is all about nice beaches. So basically tourists, they think that Australia, it's only a place where you go to the beach and that's it. But Australia is more than that. Cities like Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane offer amazing cultural experiences and have world-class art galleries and museums featuring Australian, Indigenous and international art. The performing arts scene, music festivals and sporting events are also a very important part of the Australian culture and identity. So if you ever come to visit here, I highly recommend not limiting yourself to just going to the Great Barrier Reef, but actually exploring all the cultural activities Australia has to offer. It will be naturally very different to what you find, for example, in Europe, but again, it's another side of Australia that perhaps not many people know about. Another big misconception.
Don't be talking about my Australia saying they ain't got no culture. We ain't having that. Go to Australia for yourself, experience it, and then you can say something. But until then,
Perception is that Australia is always hot all year round. And again, while it is true that Australia is known for its warm climate, the reality is that this is a huge country with a wide range of weather patterns. In the northern areas, for example, you'll definitely find a more tropical climate with wet and dry seasons, but in the southern regions, you'll experience cold winters and in some parts even snowfall. So it's not all hot and humid as many people think. We actually have a bit of everything in that regard. So if you're a tourist coming to Melbourne or Sydney, remember please to bring a jacket, especially during the winter months or in autumn and spring, because it does get cold. Another misconception.
I feel like it's a country almost as big, basically not almost, as big as the United States. So of course in different areas you're going to have different weather, and with different seasons brings different weather. So the thing is hot all year round is wild, but when it is hot, it's hot.
That people who've never been to Australia have is that all Australians live in the Outback. And while it is true that Australia is famous for its Outback, most Aussies actually live in urban or suburban areas. Cities like Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, Perth are huge cities with modern infrastructure and a wide range of landscapes, including rainforests, mountains, and coastal plains. So it's not all desert, as many people think. Another misconception, and this is more of a stereotype that many people have, is that Australians are all tall, white, blonde, and fit, and they all surf, as I said before. And this is something that we were discussing with my Australian partner. We were wondering, why do people always have that image? And even in Argentina, where I'm originally from, when there's some kind of reference to Australia, for some reason, they always portray Australians as these blonde surfers or safari guys. And that's far from the truth. Australia is a nation of migrants, as well as people from Aboriginal heritage. It's super multicultural. You're going to find people from all over the world, and we all look very different. So it's a huge misconception to think that everyone looks like this guy. Yeah, it's interesting. Okay, another very big
who don't want to look like Chris Hemsworth though, if we're being honest. But no, Australia is a diverse country. To think everybody's tall, white and blonde is absolutely insane. Yeah.
Conception is that all Australians are descendants of convicts. Well, it is true that British convicts settled in Australia in the late 18th and early 19th centuries. The majority of Aussies today are not direct descendants of convicts. Again, as I said before, Australia is a nation made of migrants, Aboriginal peoples, so it's not that all Australians are descendants of convicts, as many people think. Another big misconception that many people have is that Australians have Vegemite with every single meal, and this is not true. Well, it is true that Australians love their Vegemite, at least most Aussies that I know, they love it, and we actually have, even here, we have Vegemite. It's an essential part of our house. And that doesn't mean that Australians eat Vegemite with every single meal. Usually you have it as an afternoon snack, or perhaps in the morning, but not every single day. So yeah, that's another misconception, I guess. Now, if you want to know more about Australian culture, what is it like to live, work...
I'm telling y'all right now, leave the Vegemite alone. Don't touch it. Leave that for the Australians.
Study and travel in this beautiful country. I highly recommend watching these videos here and here. And if you like this video, please like and subscribe to keep supporting the channel so I can keep bringing more Aussie content for you. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.
That was a great video. She did point out a lot of misconceptions, but I do think that the misconception, the slang misconception, that's the one I'm going to disagree with. You guys use a ton of slang. But I absolutely love getting to learn more about Australia, and praying one day I'll get to go. That's all we have. If you guys enjoyed, please don't forget to subscribe. Give the video a thumbs up and check out the next one. And I'll see you guys next time.